We'll get started.
Great.
All right, welcome everybody to the Tinker Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Greg Dowd. Today I am joined by returning guests, catching up with a buddy here, Solo Miner. Welcome to the show. We met years ago on originally the Steemit platform, and is now the Hive platform where you can earn cryptocurrency by blogging and with the native token. So what's up, Solo Miner? How are you doing today, man?
Greg, I'm doing good. Lots of going on the farm every day. I get up, I do work as much as I can, and go to sleep and rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, man, you have yourself a nice little piece of property, and you didn't all. I mean, you were moved to kind of live this life, and before you had moved, I think you were in the northern Georgia area, and then you
Yep.
moved over into Virginia. And I know you were for a while. That's how you caught my eye when you were blogging. Was that you were doing a lot of things like homesteading type stuff, and I was following you for all that stuff. And was that kind of like a vision of yours? Was to kind of start having an independent, living more independently, being like kind of more self sufficient? Was that something that you'd had in mind for a while?
Yeah, it definitely was, but I was greatly limited by space and zoning for where I lived. I was in a suburban area and we were on about a half acre at the time. So every plant I put in, I had to think about like, is this going to grow over into my neighbor's yard? Or is where I put this plant, I can't grow something else. And I was starting to pull plants up to put other plants in. And now I got way more space. Quite honestly, it's a little overwhelming how much space I have now. But now I have all these options for new food plots and things that I started practicing in Georgia. And I had small gardens like peppers and sweet potatoes, and I had some cherry trees and apple trees, but very small scale. And now I'm kind of learning, okay, what do I want to build bigger this time? And like I
Hmm.
built this 3rd acre garden that's completely enclosed. Like a 3rd acre is almost like 2/3 of the size of my old property, like just the garden. So like I
Right.
have this huge space, and then we have meadows as well that we seeded with orchard grass and rye and other things. So definitely taking what I learned in Georgia and applying them out here in Virginia on a larger scale now.
Okay. So if I guess for people that might be hearing you for the first time, could you give us just a little bit of your story? Could you give the audience a little bit of your story? How did you get into where you're at right now, where you're living? Kind of. I don't even know what you would call what you're doing. Is it a farmstead? Is it a homestead? What exactly are you working on, and what your vision is right now, and how did you get there?
Mhm. Sure. Well, originally where I lived previously, I was taking care of my mother. I'm an only child, and my mother is divorced, and she was going through some really hard times of mobility. So at the time, I was living in Georgia with her, taking care of her. But when she passed, I had the opportunity to move to a whole new home. And me and my girlfriend and my good friend, that's my foreman. I wish he was here right now in this chair next to me to be chatting, but he's got to take care of his baby. But
Hmm.
it's something that we all moved up here together. And I find that maybe we can build something interesting versus where I was before, where I didn't have like a lot of space to build things out. And it all started with blogging. You're right. I think it really pushed me like homesteading to like share people my garden. Like, here, I grew some tomatoes this year. And at first, I'm like, do people really care about what I'm doing in my backyard? But when those posts did really well in blogging versus like sharing like a gaming video, I was really amazed that I could just keep going with just sharing gardening stuff. And people were really intrigued and gave me advice as well. And now I'm doing it on a bigger scale out here in Virginia. And I continue to blog on the Hive blockchain. I'm really thankful for all my followers and my how everything has gone there. Very thankful. So I hope to continue to expand through videos and such and writing. But the farm specifically, we're actually looking to become a commercial garlic farm. that's really the big goal here. This is where we want to make our money, and we're going to go from a hobby farm, which is where we're at now, which is we just grow veggies for blogging and to eat and to have fun. But we want to grow 1 acre of garlic. It's a
Okay.
type of garlic called music garlic that has been native to Virginia. So it's actually a garlic for the area. It's really good to grow. It's a hard net garlic. And we're right now conditioning a 1 acre area to then put the garlic in. I just ordered the garlic planter, and it's coming, I think, from Canada right now. That's going to hook up to my tractor.
Oh,
But,
okay.
um, but we're having to fix the NPK in the soil. Right now, the nutrients are a little off. The nitrogen and the phosphorus are low. The potash is fine with the clay that we have, but we're needing to add in nitrogen and phosphorus right now. And we're doing that through adding in like wood chips and grass cuttings from the field. And we're going to add in wood ash as well, which is going to give us our phosphorus. And we're hoping also to raise the pH to a high enough level to suppress the weeds around, but the garlic is still happy at like an 8, which is, we don't know if it'll work, but we're hoping to tweak the pH a little bit to benefit the garlic there. So, yeah, lots going on, and it's really evolved from my small property I lived in previously to where we're at now. And we want to start a farm. That is the goal.
Okay.
I'm having a lot of fun blogging, but I want to definitely have like a commercial farm here.
Okay. Okay. So you're looking to take this from that kind of a homestead scale now, kind of scale that up to be able to provide food for the, I guess you just actually just increase the amount of things that you're producing with the in focusing on this garlic
Right.
for the beginning.
Right, because garlic it seems very profitable from what we read, and there seems to be a deficit of garlic on the markets. When we were calling garlic planters, like people that actually grow garlic, they say they usually just grow it on small scales, but the distributors push them to grow even more because they never really have enough, from what I've been told. So we're kind of trying to follow a trend here and grow something that might be really beneficial long term. As if we have supply issues, we'll add to the supply. We'll go from 1 acre to 5 acres to up to 30. If I wanted to expand, that would be insane. The amount of work involved in pulling weeds from a 30-acre field. But we're starting with 1 acre, and we're going to go
Okay.
from there.
Yeah, I see that you've invested in some equipment, you've got some equipment and being able to tackle all the property that you now have. I think I'm pulling this up on the screen. You've got one of your posts going here
Oh, excellent. Yep.
of you talking about how you have been mowing the grass and getting it ready to bale, I guess.
Exactly. We collect it for its nitrogen source. So we'll till it into the ground and hopefully release the nitrogen back in the soil.
Okay. So you're not gonna sell the hay. You're gonna just use that as kind of putting it back into the land.
We have attempted to sell the hay, but we have a lot of milkweed that's been left over for many years of not treating the farm. Like, this is our first 2 years here, so what we inherited, we're trying to get all conditioned right now. But there was so much milkweed in the fields. Many people that said, "Oh, no, thank you. That might make our animals sick. We don't want it." But we were very upfront. We don't want to get any animals sick. We don't want to put a bad name on ourselves selling bad hay. So our long-term plan is probably to eradicate the milkweed. There's many ways to do it. Many of them involve Roundup, and I don't want anything to do with that. But
Yeah.
there's other techniques like interrupting its growth cycle, where if you cut back the milkweed enough and it doesn't fall down to seed, it will die out, supposedly, is what I've been told. So we might try to overcut and just chop and drop it enough times to stop it from growing. That's our plan right now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've also heard of so one of the guys that's in our group, he does regenerative beef right now, and he's doing like the paddock shifting to kind of simulate the like a predator following that herd of cattle. And I guess when the cows are kind of concentrated in an area, it's like if you're given a buffet and you're given a choice to eat between, the vegetables or the ice cream, like you'll go for the ice cream or whatever first.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think the cows are a similar way. And I guess when you do like the paddock shifting, I guess sometimes they can eat some of the things that they might not like to go after uh, as quickly when they're like more in a concentrated area. But but yeah, maybe incorporating animals in some way. But I don't know. I don't have experience with that. I'm talking out of my
Oh.
ass right now. But
We don't want to. I don't want to overextend myself. My
yeah,
foreman wants to go in many directions and really expand the farm, and I'm a little worried about doing too much right now. And that's why
yeah,
I'm really trying to dial in the garlic, as it's a huge project in itself. I don't think it should be understated, like how much work it's going to be for a 1 acre area of garlic. Like we're expecting to spend 2 to 3 hours a day pulling weeds and cutting off the tips of the garlic flower coming up, the scrapes and such. So
yeah.
there's a lot of care involved, and we're also getting a well drilled on the property in the area where the garlic is. So we have irrigation if we have droughts. As our drought almost wiped out our hayfield this year, and we're lucky a lot of it's come back. But there droughts happen even in the south.
Wow, yeah. So we're experiencing that same thing here as well, and it was a couple weeks ago. My property that you guys have come down and visit. So the neighbor started a fire and almost caught the property on fire. So it's been so dry. It's been
Oh no!
ridiculous. Yeah,
In your structure,
everything's okay. Everything's okay.
were
But
they burning trash or something?
they were attempting to burn a stump, I guess, but they
God,
did it
oh,
at the
wow.
worst part of the year. Yeah, it's been so dry. But
Man.
you
But
guys are experiencing the same kind of thing up there, huh?
well, we did until Tropical Storm Debbie came through and dropped 7.5 inches on us in one day,
Oh
and
wow!
it almost killed my cannabis plants. I don't know if
Oh
you've
wow!
seen. I don't know if you've looked through the pictures of my recent updates on my cannabis, but they're mostly dead.
Oh wow!
One of the plants of the four is good. It almost looks perfect, but two to three, something went really wrong, and I think they got way too much water, and they just started rotting. So we had to cut off 3/4 of all the colas, and luckily that's only flood damage we've had from that rain. But we got so little rain, and then we got so much rain it damaged some of the things I was growing.
Oh wow! Okay, so yeah, you've been doing this gardening. I think I've got this pulled up
Yep,
now.
that's the garden up. Every month I try to do a garden update. I show off where our annual plants are. I haven't really done one on the perennials much. They're looking really scraggly. So I haven't really talked about the blueberries and apples and cherry trees, but we keep the annual garden like you see here in really good shape. And I was happy kind of showing off the stages. Like we can see the lettuce there has gone to seed and it's bolting. So we've kind of left it alone. Amazing thing is those beds were completely filled up to the top with dirt, and that's how
Yeah,
much settling has occurred. Like when you look at the lettuce one, half of the
right.
bed is dropped. It's amazing how much dirt settles when you fill up raised beds.
Yeah, that soil starts to compact on you, and over time,
Yeah, so this
uh,
winter we're gonna fill up the beds again to the top because
okay,
everything's annual. Nothing's really gonna be around over the winter. I might start some garlic in here just on a tiny scale just to practice for next year. But
yeah,
we don't really have many winter crops going on, and I'll take the time to recondition the beds in the winter time.
yeah. So how many of these raised beds did you build? You built a bunch of them. It seems.
At least 20, maybe 30.
Wow.
I'd have to count. We did not use them all this year. We got kind of tired of planting near the end, and we wanted to focus on what we had. So
Right.
next year, I'm hoping to fill more of the beds, and like the garlic this year, I'm hoping to fill some in the winter, and then they'll be there next year. So we're going to have some winter crops carrying over to the summer, which we'll have beds in use. So next year we probably will fill all the beds, But this year we didn't have a crop from the previous season already preoccupying. So filling every bed definitely took some time, and it was cool though. Growing them all inside, I started all the seeds in the basement under like compact fluorescent lights. And I set them on a timer similar to what I would grow my weed at in vegetative state. And once the temperatures got high enough around April, we put them in the ground, and they've been growing since.
Wow. Yeah, this is a lot of work. So where did you guys get all the did you go out and buy the lumber for this, or did you get
Yeah,
somebody to mill it for you, or
it was brand new lumber, so there was definitely a high cost in building all these beds. Probably at least 5 grand. It was a lot of money, like with all the wood. And if I could redo it, I'd probably redesign them and not use 2x6s and 2x8s. I probably would have used some kind of steel structure with like the metal paneling instead, because this was
Mhm.
definitely not a cost efficient way of building beds. And it's also not a permanent way. Like those beds are probably not going to last more than 5 years. But it got us started, and I'm having a lot of fun. I don't really mind overpaying if we're having fun. Like every day or every other day, we go out to check all the plants, and about every 3 days we water everything if the rain doesn't do it for us. So we're enjoying them. We're out there all the time.
Oh, okay. You might be able to extend the life of them possibly by charring the wood, potentially.
Like
Um,
a blowtorch.
yeah, like blowtorching them, but you'd probably have to dismantle the beds and like torch both sides, and then like seal it with like some linseed oil or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
that'd be a little hard now.
yeah.
Yeah,
I also saw in one of these posts that you made, that you've got like a big wood chipper too, that you're wood chipping some of the trees, I guess, that you're cutting down on the property.
yeah, we got a lot of scrub trees on this property. The previous owner clear cut the property multiple times. So we have a bunch of really thin 1 inch, 2 inch diameter trees that are 10 to 15 feet tall. And we go out there near the garlic area and we cut them down and we feed them into the wood chipper. And it's going to be one source of nitrogen eventually. Because they're big chunks of wood, the bacteria inside is going to fix the nitrogen for a while, which means that you won't be able to use it. Like the same thing that makes wood chips hot is the same thing that's like consuming the nitrogen if you put them in the soil. So that's why we want to do hay along with wood chips. So we have immediate nitrogen. And
Yeah.
maybe 3 to 5 years, once that bacteria has died out in the wood chips, then the wood chips are going to start releasing nitrogen and it'll be like a long term fertilizer. And if we do this enough, the soil will literally turn black and it'll become like very humusy and it's a great growing medium. But you have to add about 10 years worth of wood chips over and over to get like a really good bed of like soil because wood chips it does not happen overnight. But yeah, that's what our
Yeah.
plan is.
Yeah. This is all about building your soil up, and yeah, what you're doing there is very, very cool. I think it's like kind of combining a couple folks' methods of building fertility in the soil. There's just one guy that does I guess it calls it the back to Eden garden method, and it's all about adding those wood chips over time, and it helps retain moisture in the soil, and they'll break down over time and kind of help support the microbes that are in the soil and kind of giving them a home and things. And then I think there was another, I can't remember what her method's called, but yeah, it's basically putting down a bunch of that hay or whatever into the ground as a way to compost and keep adding nutrients back into the soil. So wow, so you're doing this is a pretty big thing with doing the equipment and having all that equipment to mulch all those trees and get that into your, so you're doing 1 acre of this, huh?
Yeah, and I ran it through an AI asking how many pounds of mulch do I need to significantly raise the nitrogen level.
Yeah.
I didn't like the answer. It told me I need 167,000 pounds of mulch. So we're going to
Yeah.
do our best here. We might have to get, granular fertilizer or liquid, but we're going to mulch until we're tired of mulching. And then by next year, when we're ready to plant the garlic, we'll have a field to start with, and we might have to supplement it with other things. But hopefully, long term, when we take breaks from the field and we remulch it over time, hopefully we don't have to add much in. It will just be naturally occurring in the soil.
I wonder. So I wonder if you could kind of maybe uh do things in stages, like do maybe a plot in this one section, and then like just like do sections at a time until you fill up that entire acre, and maybe you have like a succession for a harvest or something like that over time.
That is our
um,
plan. So the area where we have a 1 acre area partitioned off, where we staked in, we know exactly like where we want to grow. There's 5 acres to the left and the right of it. So we're thinking of starting to condition that area as well. Even if we don't want to grow yet out there, say we do want to expand 5 years from now, that soil will be ready to put anything in and we'll be very happy, and we'll need probably very little fertilizer added. It's hard to say until I actually soil test it, but the goal is just to add as much health and nutrients we can get in back that soil. Because the NPK test, when we ran it on the clay out there, it's not very good. And I don't think plants are going to be happy naturally with that, especially fruit producing things like garlic and other crops.
yeah, yeah, we've got this permaculture guy in our local Freedom Cell group, that, man, like, just all the things in permaculture. What I've been learning is like one of the big things is to focus on the soils, because it is that it's that biology that is in the soil, which is going to give your plants like all the help them to get all the nutrients that they need and everything. So it's really like whatever you're growing, it's all about the soil, is what I've been learning.
It is, and something interesting I noticed in Georgia, as I was leaving about the 5 year mark of me conditioning the soil, there was mats of mycelium forming underneath the layers of the wood chips, and all that mycelium, I'm pretty sure, was highly beneficial to the plants around it. But literally, like, there was networks of fungus starting to grow under all this, and holding it together and break it down probably at even a higher rate. So when you see that fungus move in, you're on the right track, it seems.
Yeah, yeah. It is important. Part of that soil food web is those fungal networks, I believe.
Yeah, it's very important. So when I started to see that everywhere I dug, along with the black, rich, like humusy like soil, I'm like, this wood chips, like long term, it makes a big difference. If you can keep adding it, it's just a lot of work.
So do you find that you're getting like a real passion for all this, for the farming aspect of things? Like, does like when you wake up in the morning, are you like raring to go for getting the farm projects done and things like that? Like, you think that you found a real passion for this?
Absolutely. Where I lived previously, I felt a little trapped as I had neighbors to every side of me. Like in my backyard, I could probably see 10 houses just looking at any direction. I just never really felt comfortable going out there and just being myself. But out here on all the acreage, I can go outside and it's like a nature preserve. Like we see wild turkey outside almost every day. We see deer. And half the time, if I'm working, it's just a nature show. I just get to see like a hawk fly over, or like a woodpecker that's so big you didn't think they're even like around anymore. So it's like the nature sightings, even if I don't get work done, usually make up for the day, even if I don't feel like I had a productive day. But to answer your question, yeah, I really look forward to it. And a few weeks ago, I actually had a dream that I was loading my wood furnace with firewood. I'm dreaming about starting firewood season, and I just found that funny. I'm literally looking forward to it that much.
Oh
It's
wow.
it's I don't know, it's fun. I've never had to haul firewood in my life. Maybe I'll get tired of it 2 to 3 years from now. Maybe I'm tired of this. But right
Yeah.
now, it's like immediate satisfaction putting wood in the fire and making you warm. Like you did that. That heat you made yourself warm with that. I collected the wood, I put it in the furnace, I turned it in the fire, and that the water that goes through the wood furnace heats the house. And
Yeah.
it's a really cool setup.
Now, now, Solo, like, uh, getting to know you more, and it seems like you are pretty good at like researching. You do a lot of research. It seems into like setting up this entire farm and everything like that. I could tell that you had a vision and you wanted to stay like as energy efficient on things as possible, and because a lot of people, like, you did something with that wood boiler system up there in North Carolina about heating your house, and you've got on that property you got two houses and a workshop, and yeah, I don't think I see a whole lot of people like implementing stuff like that where it is a pretty energy efficient type idea. So yeah, I could tell that you really thought of like kind of long term. You wanted to move in a direction where you can kind of live off the land for the most part, is what it seems like.
Exactly. I'm almost there. The generator is pretty much the last thing I needed. I have well water. I have generator through natural gas, well, through propane, not natural gas. I have electricity through batteries or my solar arrays. I have septic, and then I have wild game roaming my property if I ever wanted to shoot at them. As long as it's within season, I can take a shot and have some food almost instantly. So like I'm trying to have everything checked. As I see a lot of just a lot of disruption in the world, and cities seem like a dangerous place to live these days. And I'm trying to build my homestead just out in the woods, so I'm prepared just in case these services stop, and I'll have a way to keep going myself.
Had you always had that mindset, or was it just seeing how things were playing out in the world and wanting to do something more about it yourself?
Yeah, so I grew up in Los Angeles, and I lived through the Rodney King riots. I mean, I wasn't in LA in the riots, I was in a suburb, but it directly affected me, like seeing the amount of chaos and havoc that can occur in cities. And I never see that out in the country. Everyone, cares about each other and helps each other out when they're down. But living in like Los Angeles and living near Atlanta and those types of places, it just seems a really dangerous place if the services in that place stop. And that's
Ah,
not really an issue out in the country, because like what I'm trying to do for myself is I have all my own services. Like I opt out of those. But you can't do that in the city. You can't have a wood furnace. The smoke that would come off a wood furnace would piss off every neighbor. I'd get like 15 complaints where I used to live by my wood furnace. So it's
right.
one of those things, like you got to live far away if you really want to be self-sufficient. I'm afraid is the cities, even though they have services, they have utilities for water and sewer that can be shut off. No one can shut off my well unless I lose power to my pump or it gets fouled or something. But it's not like a city worker can go out there to the water line and just shut it off. So big
Oh
difference.
wow. Okay, so you would you say that that experience in those riots back in the day that really kind of stuck in your head about how things can play out
Yeah.
in a trying time?
Yeah, how dangerous things can be and how quickly they can excel, to where my mom told me, she said, hey, don't go outside, and we can't call the cops, they're not going to show up right now. So like if something bad happens, just hunker down in a closet or something. And I'm like, I've never heard my mom say that before, and I've never heard anyone say that since. And I'm just like, do I want to stay in LA? And it's like 10 when I moved in around 2010. Yeah, more riots started happening in LA, and one of the towns I grew up in, I literally saw a video of like people smashing shop windows and rioting in the town I grew up in. I'm like,
Oh
wow,
wow.
I guess I got going while the going was good. And then I did
Yeah.
it in Atlanta. I moved as I saw problems happening in Atlanta that I didn't like. I mean, there were riots in Atlanta in like 2020, and I just want to move again, deeper into the woods.
Yeah. I guess yeah, I've been into the preparedness thing kind of mindset for a while, but for a long time, I kind of felt like I had a little bit of a lone wolf mindset. Now you decided to team up with your buddy Ryu. Now, how did that relationship form between you and him? And it seems like you guys are pretty well connected, and for him to decide to come out and move with you in giving this a go, like how did that relationship form, and how do you keep that connection going with what you're doing out there?
Well, me and Ryu go way back, over a decade. I met him at a martial arts gym. He was an instructor for Muay Thai. And when I lived in Los Angeles, I was going to a Muay Thai gym. And when I moved to the Atlanta area, I wanted to find another gym. And Ryu happened to be an instructor there. And I took classes there for months, but we eventually just started hanging out and going to like state parks, as he would always talk about how much he loved it out in the woods. And I told him I've mostly seen desert most of my life where I lived, and he took me to some really cool places, just like WMAs, like wildlife management areas and national parks and state parks. A lot of times I just tell him I want to go somewhere. I'd be afraid to go by myself. He's like, let's go. And we'd like spend the whole day out there taking my Jeep up into the forest roads and go hiking, see where they take us. And we got tired, we head back home. But years later, we just figured maybe we can team up and try to make something together here. And that's what we're doing now. We're trying to make the garlic. That's our joint plan, and we work together on that. And long term, I really hope that we can not just be friends, but be business partners, because he's a hard worker, and all the time we spend in the woods has proved that. And I think it's showing in the farm as well.
Oh wow, okay, cool. So you guys met through just kind of you wanting to get into Muay Thai again, and you met him through him teaching some classes there.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And we just became long-term friends, and eventually we didn't do class together. I think the gym got shut down, but at that point we just take weekends or go camping out in places, bring tents, and just enjoy the woods. He loves it out in the woods. He wouldn't rather be anywhere else. I think he would say that himself. He was right there, but he likes it out in the country. So he showed me quite a bit of fun out there.
You know, in our modern society, we're so inside all the time, and we're very rarely outside. But there's like I've seen these people showing studies of, they call it nature bathing, but it's just like maybe it's getting to witness some of what of the creation that we live in, and getting to connect more with the things around us, where it seems like in our modern day world, you get into a box, you go to a box, you sit under artificial light all day, where and get very little like sunlight. And I think that like well, maybe we're rediscovering that is really important, and that we only recently have started to live this way, and it's causing a lot of problems for people.
Yeah, I think touching grass, so to say, is
Yeah.
really important, and people do not do it enough.
Yeah, it's do you think that I guess, do you feel like you're happier when you're touching grass than kind of being inside all the time and stuff?
Absolutely. Like looking back at where I was living previously on the half acre, like I'm a recluse. I really don't like to talk with people. If I see a neighbor, I'll wave and I'm not going to ignore them, but I don't really get joy out of chatting with them for 5 or 10 minutes. I kind of just want to be left alone. So previously it was really hard to find that peace. But now, like I have these forest roads all throughout my property. It's just up to me. Like, do I want to go for a walk, or is it safe to go for a walk? Like maybe it's like 1 o'clock in the morning and we got bears and coyotes. Maybe I shouldn't go for that walk, but I have the opportunity now, where I previously just kind of had to like stew in my basement and not really have the ability to do stuff outside. And having the farm, even though it's a lot of responsibility, it's something that I can build upon now, versus I didn't really feel like I could build much in the city.
Right. Right. Yeah, so speaking of, kind of your I guess foresight on things. You wanted to install. You talked to me years ago, I guess, and you had come and visit me out at my property when we met each other through, I guess, me doing the podcast and you kind of we both started following each other through the blogging platform. But
Makers and Meadows, back when you were on the Minnow Support podcast.
yeah, I got involved in the community on the blogging platform, and then connected with each other. I brought you on for a podcast, but I had been working on my little off grid thing, and have a buddy of mine that has been doing it for a while as well, my buddy Tyler, and he contacted me a while back, and I was like, well, I don't know if I'm comfortable with setting up a big system like you're
Yeah,
talking about, but I have a
it was
buddy
a huge
that's really good
job.
at this stuff.
Yeah, it was a big job.
And so we came out there and helped you get this set up, and you've been running the system for a little while now, and maybe we could talk about that for a little while. So
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
got So you got these, I think it was like a close to a 14 kilowatt solar array set up outside. And then you've got two of these solar arc systems running two of the houses on the property, and some lithium iron phosphate battery system backing everything up. So how's that system been running for you guys? And what kind of challenges and things have you run into since all that got set up?
Well, there's been some unforeseen issues that I could have never expected, honestly. One of them was a battery disconnect switch that would just continuously switch off. The switch is something you would normally have to protect the system from like over voltage or getting too much power through it, but it would just trip for no apparent reason. And it would trip in the middle of the night and usually waking me up due to some alarm going off on the solar. So there's been like a few different systems that we've had to modify since you guys left to get it all working. But in general, you left us in a really good place where we immediately started to see the benefits. And like my power bill for my house, it's not as low because I only have 5,000 or 5,500 watts of PV coming in. But for my foreman's house that has 10,000 kilowatts coming in, he sees like $100 power bills now when it used to be like $300 power bills. It was like 160 last month for him. I don't know if I've ever seen it that low. Usually the house is empty if the price of the power bill was that low. So
Wait, so what did the power bill go from how much to how much?
It was probably like 300 and now it's like 160.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's about half.
About half.
And we still have to use power at night. So like when he's running his electric oven inside or his dryer, yeah,
it's
at
pulling
nighttime,
from the grid, yeah.
Yeah, and we pull about 1,000 watts from the batteries at night just to supplement a little bit. But it doesn't really get you very far when you're pulling like 5,000 watts for the cooktop and another few hundred for like the water heater. So it's true. It's not a true off-grid setup, especially at nighttime. But during the day, it's usually pulling zero from the grid, and that's something really cool. Because I love seeing all the data on the displays and panels that I've set up for the solar arc.
Yeah, so I guess if you time how you use the energy, that you could use most of it off of just what the solar is producing during the day. So you also experienced some power outages. Have you guys been able to just have there been any outages while the system has been set up for you, and or have you even noticed, I guess?
There has not been any like catastrophic outages. There's a 10-second power outage when like they were working on the substation down the road. Excuse me. But there hasn't been any like power lines taken out by trees, which is amazing because last year our power went out probably 20 times that year.
Yeah.
And now since the solar arc is set up, we haven't really had to test it. We've tested it by turning off the power to see how it does. but we have not been put in the situation where we have to use it yet. I mean, knock on wood, I'm glad, but I would like to kind of see it a little more in action when I can.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess so you've got the solar, you've got the wood burning furnace, and then you said you also did some changes with how you cool your house. Is you set that up on a couple of mini split systems instead of the or you still have you have your central system, I guess, is a
Yeah,
package unit, and then
right.
you also set up these two mini split systems and said that they're handling a bit of your cooling or whatever. You're running some of that off of that.
Right. The upstairs on the second level has been really difficult to cool. We think it's due to not a lot of insulation put in the ceiling. And we were finding our outdoor unit running just all day long, trying to keep the temperature below like 78 upstairs. And when it was like 95 or above, 95 degrees Fahrenheit or above outside, we couldn't even keep it to temp. It would just run and run, and it would just get hotter and hotter up there. We're not sure if we have like ducting issues where like maybe mice chew through the ducting and air is escaping up in the attic. We don't know, but we've just tried to stop using that unit as it's not efficient and it uses a lot of power. So since I got a split unit in my basement that I've been finishing, I really like it, and I decided to have one installed upstairs. And it's a little bigger. It has more BTUs as it's cooling a larger area, but it seems to be working. It's cooling the main room really well. It gets it down to like 70. The hallway maybe is like 75 or 80, but the main room it's in, you can bring it down to 70 no problem. And we used to not be able to. Like if it was too hot, the air conditioner couldn't win the battle with the elements.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. So yeah, you also talked about I guess in your house there was like the power was feeding kind of interestingly into like two areas or whatever, and maybe possibly doing like a separate system to handle whatever the other extra panel is or whatever to handle all that. So
Yeah,
um,
we're looking to split the load there and try to get on two solar arcs pretty soon. And I think natively that's how the house wants to be set up. That's how it is to code, and that's what the electricians say it needs to be. So
ah,
I'm gonna work with them on that. And they told me they don't want to touch any of the solar panel stuff. They're going to be nice enough to hook up the battery leads from the BMS and split it probably between the two solar arcs is how I think it's going to be done. But they said they'll do that, and they'll hook up the grid side and the panel side. So I'm really good that they're able to help me, because a lot of electricians look at they're like, oh, we don't touch solar stuff. But these guys have been really flexible, and as long as we draw the line on what they're willing to do, which is usually the solar panel part, they don't want anything to do with the solar panels. They usually help me out.
okay, okay, yeah. So yeah, you have a separate building too, and that's like feeding your workshop. Is that all fed off the solar as well now? You have that kind of. I mean, we hooked it up so that it would be running that workshop, but it was maybe going through. It was going through a disconnect switch, but you got an electrician to help you out and get that like straight wired in and everything.
Exactly, because when you guys came out, we would have had to pull a permit to get it like properly wired.
Yeah,
And we just decided not to go down that route. And you guys got us working good. Even though one of the breakers would occasionally trip, we had a workaround. We knew how to reset it. But the electricians came in and they put in a disconnect switch on the house and a transfer switch, because now we have a generator. And through that transfer switch, everything is controlled. Either the power comes from the generator or it comes from the grid. And it's really, we don't notice when the power goes off at my foreman's house normally, because he has so much solar coming in. Like it's never really
yeah.
noticeable.
Oh wow. Okay. He's on like an automated transfer switch now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if the grid it senses the grid off, it'll kick on a generator.
Exactly. Yeah, it takes a few seconds for it to get the air out of the lines and fire up. But during the 5 to 10 seconds, the solar arc goes to full power usage. It uses whatever it needs from the batteries. It doesn't matter what you set it to. When the grid goes out, it gives you everything it can. And it's usually enough to last, a few hours technically. So if it just takes 30 seconds for the generator to kick on, we can usually have a interruptless state, which is really cool.
Oh wow, cool. So that's also running your shop outside and everything. Uh, how's all that going? Is that going pretty good with running the power
Oh,
uh off the solar in the shop and everything?
I haven't hooked up any 240 devices yet. So all I have done is like hook up a chop saw out there on the 120. I mean, that uses like a good 1,000 watts. So I would have seen the lights dim or something, I guess, if there was a problem. And I've run like a shop vac out there so far. But it's perfect, no problems at all. And whenever I'm ready to go with some bigger equipment, like a welder or a car lift or something, I'm already wired up for it at the panel because of you guys. So it's really great. I love it.
Yeah, that's excellent, man. I mean, that's what what you have going on over there with that solar is like you've got your own microgrid basically with the generator backups and the solar and the battery bank and everything like that. So
Yeah, I just
um,
have to figure out what's wrong with the generator. It seems to miscommunicate with the solar arc. So if I'm pulling light from the panels, it doesn't seem to want to accept power from the grid when the generator is on for some reason. And we haven't figured out why, but we have learned if you cut off the PV side, the DC switch on the side, and you cut that off, then for it starts working and it doesn't cut in and out for whatever reason. But if you have the PV side on, it starts pulling power from the generator for a few seconds, and then it shows it off with the yellow background where it means there's no power coming from the grid. And then it would start pulling again, and then it would stop. But it seems if we cut off the PV, it's fine. It's happy with whatever we did to make it happy. So we're learning how to use it. It's a big learning process, but it is all coming together and better than being in the dark with no solar, no battery, and no generator. I'd rather have things not working perfectly that I might be able to fix than having nothing.
yeah, I wonder if there. I'll have to talk. Well, me and we'll have to sit down together maybe sometime and talk about this because I'm wondering just from what you're describing if that solar arc is maybe meant to pull from a generator when there's not a significant solar input or something maybe.
Something weird. I opened a ticket with Solarc asking them what could possibly be going on, and they say make sure you have 240 volts going to the generator and make sure you have 50 to 60 hertz. And we checked that; it's all perfect. The generator fluctuates from like 58 hertz to 60, but I think as long as it's between 50 and 60, they say it should be supported. So it is strange how it's not just working natively. We just have to turn off the solar panel side to get the power to come in from the generator. I can't explain it, but I can fix it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can make a solution work. Okay.
Right.
Oh, okay. Very very cool, man. So yeah, you're kind of like in the position that I was working towards myself was like I'd like to be totally independent off grid and being able to have no electricity bill. Uh you're not quite there yet, but you've got you're independent and prepared for if there's something that is going to go down or whatever that
Right.
you have a
Yeah.
backup.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know right now, if we weren't running our air conditioners and we were only running our crucial loads like our refrigerators and stuff, I'm sure we'd be fine. It wouldn't be a comfortable life, but it would be fine. We wouldn't lose food, and that's always the biggest concern when power goes out. I probably lost a fridge full of food at least 3 or 4 times in my life because the power took too long to come back on.
Right.
Just having
Yeah.
that not be an issue helps. And during the day, we could run our air conditioners when we have solar. It's just at nighttime, you really will have to ration your power with the battery bank.
Yeah, yeah. So is that something that you've kind of seen now? Like I remember me and Tyler talking to you is like don't expect to have all the power that you're going to use on a normal basis when you're just running off your battery bank. Are you kind of like figuring out that the limits to that with that battery bank?
Absolutely. Because I don't have a lot of solar coming in to my house. I have a deficit of charging. I usually don't charge up the batteries during the day enough. So I'll get it like if the air conditioner cuts off, then power goes back to the batteries. But if the main air conditioner plus the ductless mini split plus the cooktops going on, all the power is going to the from the PV to the panels, and nothing's really going to be going to the battery. But we've had cool days where we weren't really running the air conditioner at all, but it was a bright sunny day, and I completely recovered the battery to 100%. So it kind of matters like how hot it is outside. Like this winter, we might be 100% on solar because in the winter,
I think you may, yeah.
yeah, as in the winter, we may not have as much light intensity coming from the sun. Like I don't know how much less it is, like maybe 10% less, hopefully not 50. I don't know, but hopefully, even though there's less light coming from the sun at that point because it's winter, hopefully now we're not running our air conditioners and only running the wood furnace and the lights and the air handler, which moves the air through the wood furnace where the coils are. That shouldn't be more than like maybe 1,000 to 2,000 watts of power.
Yeah, that's significantly less than what you're running on your AC. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the winter, we might see, at least during the day, a total usage of power through the PV. But when it comes to nighttime, I'm not going to be able to do that at night. I'm always going to have to pull from the grid, I'm afraid.
Right. Right. Yeah, that'll be really interesting. And so, yeah, you've also got ways that you can log and track all that data through that
Yeah,
solar, correct?
I love it. I'm so thankful I spent more money on the Solarc than what we originally were going with. I think the other thing had like a serial interface and you'd have to talk to it through Telnet. And I'm really glad I actually have a complete web interface that I can view all this stuff through. Is It's really fancy and it really gives me great insight into my power consumption and what the batteries are at their state and the state of charge and the voltage that's related to the state of charge. So it's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I had experience with that company. That was the thing that I set up in my solar trailer, and I was really happy with how they interacted with me and everything like that. So we want to give that. And I've also heard good things from other guys that do the solar stuff about that company as well. A lot of them are from directly from China, and I think a lot of the components that Solarc uses are also from China, but they have a U.S.
Yeah,
base here,
you
and
can't
it's like
stop them these days.
you can't get around it right now.
Mhm.
Um, but they're a company that will help you out with their support really well. So, whereas the other guys we were dealing with was like pretty. It was pretty hard getting any kind of thing from their support team or whatever. So.
Yeah, they tried. They tried to help us, but the Solarc seems like a better product. You pay a little more of a premium, but in the end, you get the support and you get like a good web interface, which is great. I don't have to like be locally connected to the device. I can be anywhere away from home and make changes to my Solarc devices anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. So they're pretty cool to use if you're DIY installing as well. Like they're pretty much set up so that somebody can do their own self install.
Yeah.
And then there's another guy that does this. He's been looking at these EG4 systems
Mhm.
um, and they're cheaper, I believe, but I don't know if they have all the features of them. But they may be like almost a copy of these Solarc ones.
I would be surprised. That makes sense.
So, so yeah, that is probably like one of the primary that and those batteries because those solar panels have come way down in price now. And I think it's because they've set up these huge solar farms and they are installing like brand new panels in those. And there's like a whole secondary market now of like maybe panels that were going to be fielded, but there was a new technology that came out. and like I just went in with a pallet for a pallet with our group here locally, and we were able to get them for like 27 cents a watt. So that's like really come down in price.
Yeah, I'm always surprised how little the solar panels cost compared to the inverter and the battery costs, or even the wiring. The wiring costs probably more than the solar panels in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where the cost has come down significantly is in those panels, but yeah, the price for the inverter charge controller systems and the wiring and the batteries is where most of that cost is going to come in. If you want to do batteries that are going to last you quite a long time with those lithium iron phosphate batteries, uh, that's the only way to go, in my opinion, for now.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to 10 years from now. Let's see how well its state of charge is holding, and let's see how the batteries are doing. I'm really curious, but it's great. The setup I have now is it's just building for the future. Now I just kind of have to reap the dividends of the free power coming in. There was a large investment up front, but again, when you don't have electricity, I think a lot of this, it's all worth it.
Yeah, and just being prepared for whatever comes, and that talking to some guys that have been in the energy industry and helping set up the infrastructure for the energy grid. They talk about it's not a matter of if that grid is going to go down, it's like when it's going down, because of the parts availabilities for things, and the sensitivity to some of the synchronization of the grid stuff. And so I think it's a really good investment to be prepared for things like that, and to have those backup systems in place. Um,
Absolutely.
so you've also been, I guess, doing a little bit of forest trailblazing. You guys are cutting some roads in through the woods around your property as well. Uh, how's that? How's that been going? What's the plans for cutting all these trails through the woods?
All the trees we collect, they go into the wood furnace. So in the winter time, I came down the forest road and I collected all the trees that we were cutting and just putting by the side of the road. But there are two main roads on my property. One of them was an old logging road where they used to clear cut the trees like a decade or so ago. And it was incredibly rutted out to the point where you could only walk it. You could not get a vehicle back there. So we got a dump of riprap rock, like these really big. It looks like gravel. It's just really big pieces, and they filled in the ditch. And then we poured on a top layer of 57 gravel to finish it off. And now we have a complete road on one side, and the other side, like you see in this post here, is a newly formed road. That was completely forest before we put all that in. Like there was no road at all. It was just you'd have to walk through with a backpack. So this road is brand new, and the other road I did as well was a logging road that I then reconditioned so we can drive through now. So a lot of the property, I'm just trying to get it to be accessible, because if you want to reach 90% of my property, you'd have to do it on foot right now, and we're hoping to change that.
Yeah, I see that this is you guys are connecting it to a creek. So there's a creek that runs through the property of flowing water.
Yeah, Grease Creek, it changes massively. It can be anywhere from ankle high all the way up to waist high. So
Oh wow.
we don't know how we're going to cross it. Even building a bridge, we'd have to get an engineer involved because the span would not work for timbers. We'd have to do some kind of like steel I-beam construction. And I have zero welding experience, and I'm not willing to put other people's lives at risk, that being my first project, building a bridge.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out who can possibly do it. But my concern is like, will that bridge just get washed away when we get another hurricane? Like the amount of water that flows down that road there is insane when we get rain, like
Really?
heavy rains. Yeah, it is torrential. So we've made it to the creek, but we have not found a way to forge our way across the creek yet. Because we don't want to drive
Okay.
the skid steer down in water that could get in the gearbox. You can't drive skid steers in any water. So it's one of those things where we don't cross that area right now with the skid steer.
Ah, okay. But just having the ability to get down to that creek easily is a pretty big deal,
Yeah,
I'd
I
say.
mean, it's a lot of fun, honestly. We can go down there and just have a picnic and just relax by the water. It's usually a solid 10 degrees cooler down in that tree line and right by the creek compared to what it is like on the rest of the open fields on the property. So we love, both me and my foreman, we love going back there and just relaxing. It's so peaceful. It's like a picturesque thing out of a movie.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. That's a big deal to have access to a flowing water source on your property. So that's really cool.
And it's really clean. I know my foreman's drank out of it. I'm not about to. I'll drink my well water, thank you. But he's drinking out of it, and it's really clean water.
Cool. Well, Solo man, thank you so much for coming on today and chatting with me and catching up on what you have going on and everything. Where can people find you and support what you have going on? And anything else that you'd like to leave with people tonight?
Yeah, the best way is probably through the Hive blockchain. You would need to create an account to leave a comment, I guess. But that's my home. That's where I do most of my content creation, and I focus hours every day on curating and having some new ideas. Like I just had an idea for a new DApp that went online for Hive. So I spend a lot of time on the Hive blockchain. You can find me on YouTube as well. I do have an account there that I post my videos to, and then I link those to my Hive posts. So you can find me there. I think if you search Solo Miner, you should be able to find me. If not, you can just find it in my posts. But no, Greg, thank you for having me on. Really, again, thank you for coming out and helping me get my solar set up. That was a huge project. You guys did not have to do that, and I'm truly thankful. And I will give you guys a letter of recommendation anytime you'd like.
Well, thanks, man. It was really fun to work on that with you guys, and it was a really great experience to be involved with something that big. That's a big project, so really thankful that you let us give that a go, and really appreciate knowing you and being your buddy.
Absolutely. And I'm so thankful you guys came out and made that happen. I'm really glad we're friends, Greg. I do appreciate it. I hope we have more projects in the future. I know we're really far from each other now. We used to be a little closer, and now we're even further. But I don't know. I'm sure something's going to happen one day, and we'll meet again.
Absolutely, man. We'll hang out for a second, and we'll do like a debrief.
Okay.
So